Hello and welcome to this nutrition chat. When I was first asked to talk about nutrition, which is such a broad topic, sorry, I think that was on a timer. I didn't know exactly what to talk about. So I thought I would start with a question I get a hell of a lot. And to give some context, this is what I do. I help people primarily, to be honest, lose body fat. Sometimes also to build muscle or to improve performance or to develop their relationship with food. But usually what people come to me for is fat loss. And one of the key questions I get asked is, how many calories should I be eating? And to answer this question, we need to look at how many calories you need, which is a very individual thing. And how we figure that out is by trying to work out your total daily energy expenditure. And I say trying to work out because this is always a bit of an estimate. So your total daily energy expenditure is quite simply the amount of calories that you burn during the day. So it's the amount of calories or energy that a person expends carrying out physical functions, both consciously and subconsciously, which includes things like physical activity, breathing, pumping blood around the body, digesting food, and exercise. So we're going to go through the components of your total daily energy expenditure. And this is a nice little graph of them. So primarily what you spend most of your energy on throughout the day is your basal metabolic rate, which is subconscious. So essentially how many calories you would need just to stay in bed all day doing nothing. And then you have your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is usually massively underrated, or the impact that this can have is massively underrated. So this would be things like fidgeting, standing, anything basically that's activity that is not structured exercise. So things like walking or hoovering. And that takes up a much bigger percentage of your day and thus your energy expenditure than what we usually would expect from exercise. So most people think that exercise is a really great way to burn calories. But as you can see here, it's actually not that big an impact on your total daily energy expenditure. Now, one thing to note about this graph, and I'm sure the savvy of you will have already figured this out, is that it would be very individual. So, for example, if you were an elite athlete training multiple times a day for hours and hours a day, your activity thermogenesis is obviously going to be a bigger percentage than what is shown here. This is meant to be a representation of your sort of standard, quote unquote, standard general population type person. And I think it's quite interesting to note how big an impact non-exercise activity thermogenesis can have here. And a lot of this comes down to how active your job is or how active you spend most of your day. You then also have the thermic effect of food, which is essentially how many calories it takes to break down and digest and assemble the food that you consume during the day. So each macronutrient, and we'll come on to those in a minute, but your protein, carbohydrates, and fats have a different thermic effect of food. So protein has the highest thermic effect of food, with up to about 30% of the calories in your protein source being used to break down the protein or to process that protein, whereas fat has the lowest and carbohydrates sit somewhere in between. Then you have your exercise activity thermogenesis. So as I said, this is almost a little bit depressingly low, given that we think that exercise is such a great way to burn calories. And I actually have the pleasure of doing a second talk with you about exercise, and it's going to be heavily focused on why exercise shouldn't just be looked at as a way to burn calories. Here's one example that is not actually very good at that, but there are so many benefits to exercise beyond just expending some extra energy. So back to the question, energy balance. Now we know, if we look at this line in the middle here of maintenance as your total daily energy expenditure, then if you eat less than this, you create a calorie deficit or an energy deficit, and that results in fat loss because you're forcing your body to use its own energy stores. Oh, I've just realized I'm right in front of this little part here. Sorry, I hope you get, but basically this will result in fat loss. You're forcing your body to use its own energy stores for fuel, which means that you will have to delve into your fat stores, which, by the way, are just an energy store. And I think this is an important point to get in, is that so many people almost identify as how much energy they're storing, which is crazy. But we tend to call ourselves fat as opposed to just saying, I have fat. So I like to really instill with clients that fat is something you have. It's not something you are. You are not fat. You simply have fat. And that makes it, one, it takes the emotion away a little bit. And then it gives you the belief that it's changeable. So you've got that, as opposed to having a fixed mindset about I am fat. You now have a changeable mindset. Fat is something I have. It's an energy store. It can be used up. It can be built up if I then eat in a calorie surplus, which would be eating above total daily energy expenditure. And that makes it a much easier thing to deal with. So this is your basic energy balance model. Eat in a calorie deficit and you will lose fat. Eat in a calorie surplus and you will gain fat. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and you'll also gain and lose lean body mass as well. And I quite like to think of it like this, and it always kind of blows my mind. I don't know if it's just because I'm a bit geeky, but the amount of energy or stored fat that you have long term is dictated by the amount of energy you consume and the amount of energy you expend. Quite simple. But if you think about that over time, like for example, the body composition I have right now is a direct relation to how much energy I've expended throughout my whole life in comparison to how much energy I have consumed throughout my whole life. And again, thinking about it like that is helpful, and we'll come on to this later, but it's helpful because it gets you out of this perfectionist mindset where you have to hit your calories every single day, or you have to hit each meal every single day, when you realize that it's actually your actions over time that dictate the results of those, or your energy stores in this case. Then it becomes a little bit more freeing. So if you do go over your calories one day, it doesn't really matter. You can eat a little bit less the next day, and you can even these things out. So that's the sort of basics of calories. And I'm sure many people have had sort of thrown at them, it's just a calorie deficit and you just need to eat more than you expend. Eat less than you expend. Basically you need to eat less and move more. And a lot of the time that's not a particularly helpful piece of advice. So maybe if we go into a little bit like what's important beyond just calories, because it's not just calories that are important. And all of these things sort of counterlink, if that makes sense. You'll see. So for example, protein. One of the reasons that protein is so useful during a diet is because it's very satiating, which means it fills you up, which means it's actually easier for you to stick to your calories. And one problem I often see with people is that they know they have to eat less to burn body fat, but they don't make the right food choices. So it's not just about eating less, it's about eating the right thing. And it's not necessarily the right thing because other foods are quote unquote bad or unhealthy. It's just that they're maybe potentially highly palatable, they've got low volume, they're very calorie dense, which means it's so easy to overeat them. When you start making the right food choices, sticking to what you might assume is quite low calories is actually not as hard as what you might think. So protein, extremely important when dieting. You want to maintain as much lean muscle mass as possible. It's very satiating. It's also just generally essential for health. So that would be like sort of your fundamental. I like to get clients to build each meal around protein. So what am I going to have for my protein meal, or for my protein source at breakfast, lunch and dinner, and a snack, and then I can build my meals around those. Fats, again, essential. So one easy-ish way to reduce calories is to reduce fats, and that's partly because fats are the most we've already touched on this, they have the lowest thermogenesis, and two, they're the most calorie dense macronutrient. So protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, whereas fat has 9 calories per gram, which means it's very easy to overeat it without really thinking about overeating it or noticing that you have. For example, if you have like a handful of nuts, that can be a good couple of hundred calories if you're not careful. Or I'm sure people have seen before the comparison of 2 pieces of bread with peanut butter on, and to the naked eye or to the untrained eye, they look basically the same. But actually, there's a couple of hundred calories more in one of them because the portion sizes are slightly different. So this is something to be really wary of if you're looking at your diet. It could be that you're eating all the quote unquote right things, but it's just your portion sizes of fat is letting you down a little bit, or is costing you a lot of calories. But fats are essential. They're essential to hormonal health, to cellular function. You need to get them from your diet. So going very, very low fat is not a good idea either. And carbohydrates, which technically are not essential, but are very enjoyable, help performance, can help concentration for some people. But I would sort of put that as if you're trying to look at how to structure your diet, as I said, I would start with protein, I would add in some healthy sources of fat, and then I would fill the rest with carbohydrates. And one way to look at it is setting yourself a protein target, which I can give at the end of or I can give this to Jack to share, but like some targets that would be good given your body weight and your activity levels and what your goals are. Set your protein target, add in some fats, and set your fat target. So usually anything above 1 gram per kilogram body weight. Again, it depends how lean you are. So if you have a hell of a lot of body fat to lose, then that might be too high a fat target for you. So it's not quite as simple as just using your body weight, but I can help you with that as well. And then you fill the rest of the calories that we've worked out from your total daily energy expenditure with carbohydrates. And finally, variety is really important and often massively underrated. And we're finding more and more out about the gut microbiome and how important that is for health. And the one thing that apart from taking supplements, which don't actually seem to work that well, the biggest impact you can have on your gut microbiome is variety. So getting in a variety of fruit and veg. And the research shows the people who had the most diverse gut microbiome, which is linked to things like better mental health, better concentration, better metabolic health, leaner individuals, they had the biggest variety in their diet, and they had over 30 different plant-based foods in their diet. When I first heard that, I was like, I don't even know if I know 30 different fruits and veg. And I think that's what we often go to, but actually plant-based foods also include herbs and spices, pulses, legumes, things like popcorn, like things that you might not immediately think of as a plant-based food. Whole grains, all really great things to get in your diet. So that's a nice marker to go on that actually, even if you think, do you know what, calorie counting is not for me, but I would like to increase the quality of my diet. So this week, I'm going to see if I can get 30 different plant-based foods in my diet. There's a little challenge for you. And then finally, flexibility, enjoyment, a social life. And this kind of links to the adherence aspect. Can you actually adhere to the diet? There's no point having this quote unquote perfect diet, which I'm actually about to come onto and dismiss for you all. But if you can't stick to it, then it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what science says or a study said would be the perfect diet. If it's not something that fits in with your life, or if it's something that's detrimental to your life because your diet is so restrictive that you no longer have flexibility, you're not enjoying food, and you don't have a social life. One, that isn't maintainable. And two, even if it was maintainable, you wouldn't want to maintain it. And we wouldn't want you to maintain it either. So those are all aspects that you should consider as well. And then finally, this is the point I really want to make, is that there isn't a perfect diet. And that's why I've not really given much specific advice here, because people are looking for this perfect diet that doesn't exist. And I often find that perfectionism is a form of procrastination. So you're always looking for what would be optimal. And if it's not exactly perfect, then we just won't bother doing it. And this is especially true when you're thinking about starting a diet. So you might be listening to this, and at the moment I'm recording it, it's the end of November. And you might be thinking, this isn't a time to start a diet. Christmas is coming up. I'll just wait until January. There will never be a perfect time to start a diet. You will never have, and I think people always think that they will. I run programs, by the way, that are about 8 weeks long. I say about because some of them are 6 weeks. But anyway, they're for a period of time. And a lot of the time I have people being like, oh, I want to sign up to the next one because this time I've got a holiday or I have a social event. And my answer is always, there will never be a perfect time. There will never be an 8-week period of time where you have no social events. If there is, or, well, I mean, maybe apart from coronavirus times, but there will never be an 8-week block of time where there's nothing else going on. And that's not the point anyway. The point is that you learn to adapt to what's going on. The point is that your diet fits around your lifestyle. You don't fit your lifestyle around your diet. And actually, now is probably now is the best time to start, because now is always the best time to start. Or it's the second best time because the best time would have been yesterday. But now in particular is a good time to start because December is quite hard. There is often social events. There are often opportunities to eat more, to drink more, to socialize more. And Christmas often revolves largely around food. Now, if you can do it during December, then you can do it for the rest of the year. Absolutely. So you're picking the hardest month to do it. And I think in many ways, that's a good way to do that. And I know from experience that my clients who start with me in December tend to get the best results. And equally, my clients who start with me on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll just start now, rather than, I'll just wait till Monday to start. Those are the people that get the best results. And the same is true for if you like fall off the bandwagon or you slip up on your diet a little bit, is that the people who then think, oh, well, the next meal I'll get back on track, are the people that get results, rather than thinking I'll wait till Monday, or even thinking I'll wait till tomorrow because I'll start fresh. Start now, like get back on track now. You can, this is the whole point I was making at the start about you being an average of your actions over time. It doesn't matter what day it is, or that you've had the perfect day or the perfect week, and that you need to wait until next week so you can start again for the perfect week. That isn't going to happen. Imperfect action is what is going to get you results. And being perfect is short-lived if it is even lived at all. So you might tick all the boxes for a couple of weeks, but it's the people that can slip up and then get straight back on track that are the ones that get results. So this is where you can find me. I hope that was somewhat useful. If you have any questions for me, do let me know and I will be happy to answer.